Well, I've been dreading making this video, but I think it's time to go ahead and put this all to bed. This campaign is officially over. Lodrik has conceded. It's over. He'll be putting out an official video on his channel any day, but we've been talking for a while, and I've known this for a while, but I wanted Lodrik to be the one that broke the news, since it was more or less he was the one that initiated. Now, I don't want to say it was unilateral, um, but he he's the one that told me that he doesn't think he can continue, and I accepted it because I don't want to play someone who's not fully committed, and if he is not going to stick with this to the end, then I don't want to do it. I don't want to be on an emotional roller coaster of him wanting to play and then not wanting to play. So when you play the Allies, it's tough, right? So the first 4, 5, 6 months of the war, it's nothing but defeat and sadness and getting your butt kicked, right? And it's hard. It's a lot of turns and a lot of time. I've been playing this since May of 2022, so almost a year of getting my butt kicked. And when I have a good turn, I don't want the game to be at jeopardy of being over. So I have accepted Lodrik's decision that he doesn't want to play. I agree, because I only want to play him if he's going to be at his best and committed to seeing this to the end. And if he's not, then I don't think it's worthwhile for him or for me or for you guys watching it to to have to sit through this, right? Obviously, this last turn here when he invaded Trincomalee, he lost 4 carriers. Now, granted, they weren't necessarily the best of the best that he has, but he already lost the Kaga, the Ryujo. Now he lost Hosho, or they didn't say not Hosho, but Shoho, Junio. What else? Jeez, there's so many. Zuiho, and I think a Tai. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know all the names of them. He lost a total of 6 carriers this campaign, and I've lost the Enterprise. So in his summation, losing 6 carriers by March of 1942 is not a survivable situation. So that's where we're at. So it is what it is. I can't change it. That's his decision. But honestly, I think it's the best one for my sanity and for you guys as the viewers, because you only deserve to see people playing at their best. So what I want to do now for the rest of this video is talk about lessons learned from this campaign that hopefully you guys can apply to your allied campaigns if you're playing against a human opponent. Because my experience with this game prior to playing Lodrik, because he was my first play by email opponent ever, was playing against the AI. And let me tell you, the AI really spoils you because it's dumb as a box of rocks. So at this point now, I'm going to go ahead and take you through all the things that I think I did wrong and all the things I think I did right. So it may help you if you go back and watch some of my earlier videos, like especially all of the December turns, because that way you understand what I'm talking about. I will reference the things that I did wrong and right, but if you go back and watch the actual videos, it may help you understand what happened. So let's talk first about some of the things I did wrong. All right, let's do that first. Okay, the first thing I think I did wrong in this campaign was a massive failure of naval search right from the get-go, because I did not understand how critical it was. Some of you may recall, I don't, maybe around the 20th of December, somewhere in there, I sent the entire ABDA fleet out with all the destroyers, all the light cruisers, every heavy cruiser that I had from Surabaya to intercept what I thought was a Japanese carrier task force, and that was all I saw at the time. And I thought I had him in the, I thought I had it in the bag. It was literally, there was one task force sighted in the Java Sea, and it was a Japanese carrier. And I'm like, oh man, what a mistake! I'm gonna go get him, right? So we head out with the expectation of intercepting one carrier task force, and when the turn goes through, Now all of a sudden, 4 Japanese battleships are engaging my task force, and they got absolutely blasted. I lost everything. The entire ABDA fleet was basically wiped out in one turn. Maybe 1 or 2 ships survived it. And the reason that happened was I had crap naval surge. I had insufficient amounts of aircraft up all through the Dutch East Indies because there were literally like 5 Japanese task forces in the Makassar Strait, in the Java Sea, battleships, cruisers, you name it, he had it all. It wasn't just the carriers. And when I went out to intercept what I thought would be carriers, we ran into battleships and they just sliced and diced my aircraft, not my aircraft, my ships. So I would strongly advise you guys to invest a lot of time into naval search, set up overlapping search arcs. Every available aircraft that can actually be searching navally should be doing so because visibility is key. And I had a lot of problems with naval search in the first few months of the campaign because I didn't understand it. Now I do, and how critical it is. But I didn't at the time. So naval search and going in blind, huge mistake. I lost. Here, let me show you what I lost. Let's look at this. Allied ships. Let's go by date. Let's see what date it was. So you guys can go find the video. Ah, yes. Here we go. The 15th of December. Look at this. All these ships. 15th. Look at this. It was a bad day. Okay. The next thing that I did wrong. I would say... What would be the next thing I did wrong? Oh, yes. Okay. Port Moresby. I initially thought it was absolutely critical that I defend Port Moresby to the bitter end. But I looked on the map early at the beginning of the campaign and I said, you know what? We don't have enough troops in Port Moresby. I need to get more troops in there. So I started getting convoys together, all kinds of convoys, tons of convoys. And I started moving troops and tanks and supplies. And I got a fair amount in there. Look what I got in here. Not an insignificant amount of troops I got into Port Moresby. But I got a couple task forces in there. And I'm like, man, this is going great. I can't believe Lodrik didn't show up. I love this. And then, one turn, from nowhere, from outer space, literally from outer space, his carriers beam in right here, right in the middle of 3 huge troop convoys, and proceed to immediately blast it. They sink everything, and I lose thousands of troops on ships in the middle of the ocean. And not only did it happen once, it happened like 3 times, all up and down the Australian coast, where Lodrik would use his full speed maneuver, where basically you can go 18 hexes from one spot to another, so he can beam in from outside of my naval search area, and he landed right in the middle of my convoys. Some of it seemed shockingly hard to believe that he even saw them because they had no detection, but he did it. So again, a failure of naval search for sure, but I was overconfident and I was sending these things in unescorted. Unescorted being without any kind of carrier support. So looking back at it now, I don't think I would have ever committed to Port Moresby the way I did in this campaign. I don't think it's worth it to risk all those ships and all these troops. It would have been better just to hunker down in Australia and wait for support. And if he wants to take Port Moresby, let him take Port Moresby. It's not literally as critical to the war effort as I thought it was. Yeah, it's worth some points. But the only reason it's worth the amount of points it is now is because I built it up so much, right? It wasn't worth that when we started. So I lost probably 50. Let me see if we can kind of figure out how many ships that I lost. I don't even know if I can easily determine that, but let's see if we can find some. Oh, here we go. Here's one of the, like the 19th, 18th, 20th of December, right? Bunch of ships there. Let's see if I can find another attack. Cooktown, another one. Around January 4th, he came back again. Many ships sunk with troops aboard. Let me see what else. More ships sunk on the 6th of January, and these all had troops on there. Let me see what else. I'm gonna find another one. Yep, over here near Luganville on the 30th and 31st of January. 3 separate times Lodrik came in with his carriers and sank many troop ships. So again, naval search was an issue and just being overconfident with carriers out here. So that was another big issue. A third issue, insufficient minesweeping. Lodrik was incredibly successful with mines this campaign. Let me show you this. Let's look at what's sunk by. A Type 88 mine is a Japanese mine. Look at this. Look at all these ships that I lost to Type 88 mines. And a lot of these were placed right near where my ships were, where my ports were at. I underestimated the power of mines in this campaign, and I did not employ sufficient amounts of these AMCs, those little coastal minesweepers. Let me show you what one looks like. Like one of these, right? I did not fully understand the importance of minesweeping, and Lodrik placed a bunch of mines here at the mouth of Rangoon and destroyed a ton of ships. Also had issues with it here near Palembang. So I underestimated the power of mines. So I hope you'll take that into consideration. And these were sub-laid mines. These weren't dropped off by a ship. These were all laid by subs. And they just destroyed me. So I hope you will keep that in mind. Mines are not a joke. Get your minesweepers going. Let's see, what else did I do wrong here? I know I did some more stuff wrong. This is a little bit smaller of an issue, but something you should be aware of. I lost quite a few ships because I had set them to move to a port and disband. And I was incorrectly under the assumption that as soon as they got to the port, they would disband in the port. But that doesn't happen until the end of the turn. I lost a few destroyers on this part of Australia when Lodrik brought some battleships down this way. The destroyers were just in front, and I sent them to go into either Geraldton or Carnarvon, and I said disband in ports, thinking that they would get to the port and instantly disband, and then they'd be out of reach of the Japanese battleships, right? Because if they're in port like this, the battleships can't really touch them. But if they're sitting in a task force assembled, they can. So I lost many ships this campaign, thinking that they would disband in front of the enemy, and they didn't. So don't let that be part of your planning. They have to be out of the way completely, or they're going to get caught up with. That was a big problem. I got mad about that. But it wasn't Lodrik's fault. It was my fault for not understanding that game mechanic. Let's see. What else did I screw up? Yeah. Okay. Initially, I invested a lot of time and energy into a submarine campaign off of Japan. And let me show you what it actually got me. So, for all intent and purposes, those would be Mark 14 torpedoes, right? For the dozens of subs that I deployed to Japan at the beginning of the war, let me show you what I ended up with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ships sunk by type Mark 14 torpedoes, right? Hardly worth the effort. I sank a couple patrol boats, 1 AK, ACM, some just miscellaneous crap. Nothing that I really needed. I think there were better uses for those subs at the beginning of the war, so I would advise you to find another use for those subs. Use them for transporting supplies or doing something other than trying to get kills off of Japan, because it just was not happening. I had plenty of intercepts, and the subs did not hit anything. So I wouldn't do that again. I would wait until the Mark 14 torpedo capabilities were such that they would actually hurt something when they hit something. So definitely American subs off of Japan in December and January of 41, not worth it. Boy, I'm sure there's more things that I did wrong here. Let me just try to jog my memory. I don't want to say it was China. Oh, this one was a good and bad thing. Okay. Um, Initially, I just did not think because I've never played this game really before, and I didn't play against a human before, that the Japanese would be so bold to send cruisers all the way up into or past Rangoon for anything. So initially, I said I want to be strong in Rangoon. I want to defend Burma and the Burma Road. So I started shipping everything into Rangoon, and for a while, it was going pretty good. I got a lot of ships in there, a lot of troops in there, and I'm like, man, this is awesome. This is working out really, really great, right? Well, until it didn't. Let me see if I can find where was it at? Maybe I should go by date. I feel like it was late December, early January. Let's find it. Where was it? I'm gonna find it because I want to show you what I'm talking about. Oh, I think it was here. Best sign, right? Oops. Find it. Yes, right around this area, and it was about. Let me find it again. Okay, around December 27th. So it had been about 3 weeks since I started moving troops in there. Lodrik showed up with a bunch of cruisers and sank an entire convoy loaded with troops heading into Rangoon. And it caught me completely off guard. Again, I had zero naval search in the entire Indian Ocean. Nothing at Rangoon, nothing at Port Blair. I didn't see anything coming because I just completely negated the necessity of naval search. And I lost an entire troop convoy at sea due to a cruiser raiding force. So again, maybe it's just something I already mentioned, but naval search all over the map and assume that nowhere is safe. Nowhere. The Japanese can go anywhere. And I was very upset about it, but it was my own fault. So I was trying to get into Rangoon and do the right thing, but in hindsight, I was cheating fate the entire time, and I really shouldn't have been doing it. So that was definitely a problem. But now I want to talk about some of the things I did right. Okay, so I did make a lot of mistakes, guys. I don't. I'm not trying to say that I didn't. And honestly, um, I'm sure I missed some. But I want to talk about some things that I think I did right. And the first one I would say is my China strat in general. Um, this is April, basically almost April of 1942, and this is as far as the Japanese have gotten. And one thing you have to keep in mind is the majority of play-by-email campaigns tend to have restrictions on moving units from restricted commands across borders, right? But in this campaign, I foolishly agreed to let Lodrik do that because I didn't understand the ramifications of it. So what Lodrik did was he grabbed every spare unit out of Manchuria that he possibly could from the Kwangtung army, artillery, support units, infantry divisions, everything that kept him just above the 8,000 AV minimum, and he brought it all into China against me. And I had to deal with some death stacks, the likes of which humanity has rarely seen before. Literally 10,000 AV death stacks focused in a single hex at me. And I'll tell you what, that was incredibly difficult to deal with. And he had so many troops available that he could just attack me on multiple fronts with huge armies. And despite it, we stopped them near Xi'an. We basically stopped them here at Chinkiang and Kuailin. And this is as far as he's been able to get with these death stacks. If he was playing with whatever units he only had available in China, there's no way he would have done as well as he did here with the strategy that I adopted. And what is that strategy? My strategy was defending on the best terrain possible. And I'm not going to take full credit for this because I had some people giving me good advice at the beginning of the campaign. But to me, part of being a good commander is using your resources, right? And if you have more experienced players willing to give you suggestions and advice, um, that's that you should listen. And ultimately, it was my decision. I didn't have to listen, but I listened to what they were saying and I looked at it myself and I said, you know what, that is a good idea, and I implemented it. So I started defending on these hexes that were uh, like WR, which is rough terrain, forest rough, mountains whenever you could. I looked for all these WR terrain features whenever possible, and I put my units there in blocking positions. And that's why we were able to slow him down as long as we did. Um, I also had some successes down here at Conscien and Kukong where I was actually able to encircle him and destroy some of his own units. And honestly, I thought that was pretty remarkable that we were actually able to even do that to him. Because the Japanese units are just so strong from the very beginning. And the Chinese units are not strong on the attack, but we found a way to do that. And overall, I would say I'm happy with the way I fought the war in China. My aircraft usage could have been a lot better here. But overall, I think giving up ground and retreating to better territory, better ground, and giving up cities to do it was the right decision. And this is what we got for it. Basically, the Japanese ground to a halt in China, and I was able to maintain some lines and keep Chungking safe. Now, who knows what he could have done in the next few months, but honestly, um, this is scenario one. And Japanese supply situation doesn't get better; it only gets worse. So he was going to run out of supply at some point here, keeping up this ops tempo. So I think we could have won that because don't forget we still have Burma Road wide open, right? We were getting our supplies in from Suyong every day, Suyong, plus supply from Rangoon flowing to Chungking. So uh, if you're playing China, look for good terrain and defend on it, and don't engage on clear terrain. Don't do it. Just give it up. Let them have those bases. Retreat to places where you have better terrain and fight there. And that's what I did. What else did I do good? I think developing this base at in the Aleutians, ADAC and Atu, I think ADAC ended up being a great base for me. I got it built up to a good sized port, and I made this my northern sub base for dealing with Japan and whatever else. Now, granted, I found out that having the subs up here right now wasn't the best idea, but I had a great base of operations for future things going on here. So I quickly identified ADAC as a base that I wanted to be at, and I moved towards it. And I'm gonna near the end of this video, I'm gonna show you what else we had planned for ADAC and this whole region up here. But I was proud of the ADAC base. What else did I do good? I think getting to Noumea quickly and establishing that as my basically my forward uh, my forward command post for South Pacific was a good idea. This is a good base. It's on really good terrain, jungle rough. That's ×3. The base itself can be developed to a size 8 airfield and a size 7 port. It's a great base, and I identified it early on that I wanted Noumea, and I went for it. I moved everything I could to secure it, and I ended up getting about 700 AV in here, which is quite a bit, enough to keep him busy. And I also moved my Pacific Fleet here, which is from Pearl Harbor, because I figured, hey, I'd rather have these guys here at the front because these naval support units can help with repairs. They help unload supplies and troops. I just thought it was worthwhile to have that base here. So I actually moved Pacific Fleet to Noumea. So this is my new Pearl Harbor. And you still have access to some supply, not supply, but repair shipyards. Obviously not one's big enough to deal with the carriers and battleships, but your smaller ships can be fixed at Sydney, Brisbane, and Auckland. So I would say if you can get it, if the Japanese give you that opening, get to Noumea and make it an island that they can't take. Keeping with that, the other thing that I identified very quickly was that I needed aircraft out here and I needed the best that I could get. And what I decided to do immediately, almost instantly, once Pearl Harbor was done being attacked, was I packed up every available P-40B unit and I brought it out here. The P-40Bs are, without question, the best fighter the Americans have at the start of the war. It has better ceiling than the P-40Es. It has better maneuverability, I believe. Let's see. Better maneuverability, better better range, and just better high altitude performance. If you look at the comparison here, look at this. Here's a P-40B. Here's a P-40E. P-40E's got better firepower without question, and it's a fighter bomber, so it can lob bombs. That's important. But for a pure fighter, I think the P-40B is the best we got, and we proved our worth with these P-40Bs on 2 to 3 different occasions. Lodrik attacked Noumea, and my P-40Bs decimated his Zeros and his bombers. We had many kills in the P-40B units, right? Look at these guys. These guys have 33 kills, right? Look at their loss rates here. The entire campaign, this unit lost 2 pilots and 3 aircraft, and we shot down 33 Japanese aircraft. That's insane. Part of it was being on the defense, but part of it was just it's a good aircraft. So I made a decision to move my P-40Bs out to here, and I don't regret it. I thought that was a good decision. Let's see, what else did I do good here? Well, I'm sure there's other stuff, but I want to get to the big one. The biggest decision that I made for this campaign that ended up making the end of this campaign possible was my decision to commit heavily to the Indian Ocean. Early on in the campaign, I decided that Lodrik was probably going to go for the auto victory, and the best way for him to do that was to take Burma and invade India. I just felt like that was the better decision for the Japanese player. I'm sure you could do this with Australia, but I'm looking at the geography of Australia and how immense it is and how far away the bases are. And I figured it would take the Japanese weeks or months because they're probably not going to want to come in on this side because we're strong over here. We're weak on the west side. So they're probably going to want to invade up in the north or the west side. And they can take all these bases all day. It's not enough points to win. And then they have to march for months across Australia to get to the good stuff. And I just didn't see that as a feasible option. Maybe you think it is. I did not. So I said, I'm going to go ahead and forsake the South Pacific. And we're just going to have to hold on with what we got. And I sent all of my available carriers to basically operate out of Colombo. Initially, I brought them in to Bombay, and then I moved them down to Colombo when I saw that Lodrik was operating carriers in the Bay of Bengal. And you may recall, sometime in early February of the campaign date, I engaged and destroyed the Kaga and the Ryujo in the Bay of Bengal. Now, I made a lot of mistakes with ship handling and task forces and stuff, and I ended up losing the Enterprise. But it was worth a trade because you can get more carriers as the allies. The Japanese don't. And from there, it really changed the dynamic of the campaign. Lodrik started getting more wild and reckless, and he had success. But I felt like he was on the back foot, and he felt like he had to do something major to try to save it, which ultimately led up to the Battle of Trincomalee. But along with all the carriers that I brought, right, I have the Lexington and Saratoga, the Enterprise and the Yorktown were the ships that I brought, and a lot of supporting ships. I brought heavy cruisers, light cruisers, dozens of destroyers. I brought lots of ships to Ceylon with the carriers, and those are the ships that actually got engaged in this huge battle at Trincomalee. Now, granted, most of them were actually sunk, right? You may recall. Wait, let's go by date. This is the ships that we lost. Well, I can just go last turn. Okay, this is what we lost in the Battle of Colombo, right? This is no small. This is no fault. No small feat, right? This is a lot of ships. But if I didn't have these ships here to begin with, right, we wouldn't have had them to lose. A lot of American destroyers made it here. A lot of American heavy cruisers made it in here. And don't forget, we still have even more over here. Look at this. I have these guys available over here in Rangoon. I just happened to relocate them here because I got Sigan spoofed into thinking he was going to a mole mine. But I decided early on to commit a sizable portion of my navy to the Indian Ocean, and it ended up working out in my favor. I sank carriers. I defeated more carriers at sea. We didn't stop the invasion of Ceylon, so ultimately, if this were to continue, we're going to lose Ceylon, right? But the cost to Lodrik, right? 6 carriers to take Ceylon. And then what do you get for that? You get Colombo, which is a great base. Then you have a graveyard of Japanese troops stuck here. When my carriers get back out of here and recombined, and now I have naval supremacy in Ceylon. Now, the bulk of the Kido Butai is still intact, right? Only Kaga is actually sunk, so we have 5 other fleet carriers out there. But where's he going to use them? He can't split them up anymore, so he's going to have to stay engaged over here. And what does that do? That buys me breathing room down here to make gains down here. You fight wherever Kido Butai is not, right? So he would have to pull a lot of assets out of here to send up here to keep Ceylon, you know, in play. So I would say that was a really good decision that I made to bring my carriers here, and all the supporting ships. I'm sure there's other things that I've done well too. Maybe you guys know them better than I do off the top of my head, but I don't want to make this a 10-hour video explaining everything I did right and wrong. If you have specific questions or comments, I'd love to hear them either on my Discord or here in the video comments. Tell me what you think about how I played this campaign. And you can be as critical as you like. You can say I screwed up and I played like garbage, or I did pretty good. Overall, I'd say I did okay. For my first time playing a human opponent in this game, I'm satisfied mostly with how I did it, and I learned a ton about how this game works, how to run the UI, and how to not underestimate a human opponent. I learned a lot from Lodrik, so I don't want any negative comments when you watch this. He's a human being and he has feelings and he has rights to how he feels, and if he doesn't think the game is tenable for him anymore and he doesn't want to play it anymore, that's his decision, and I want that to be respected. At the end of the day, I still get to call this a win, so I can't really complain, right? I would have loved to see it to the end, but a win is a win. When the other player quits or gives up or surrenders, you get to win. So, yeah. So I guess the last thing I'll talk about now are some of my bigger plans for the future. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you what I had coming up in the next couple months in this campaign. All right, remember how I was talking about ADAC and how it's a jumping off point for future operations? Well, I actually had an operation planned here, and I want to show you some stuff here. Take a look at this. Got some troops coming in here, right? Supplies, fuel. Look at this. A bunch of support ships, AKEs, right? These are for rearming ships. Look at this. More troops. Take a look at Prince Rupert. You guys seeing stuff? So here's what I was planning to do. I was moving a substantial amount of regiments to ship from Prince Rupert to ADAC. And my intent in the next several months of this campaign was to initiate an invasion of the Kurile Island chain. Now, I had no illusions that I was going to be able to get all the way into Hokkaido, but I wanted to take Paramashiro, some of these bases here and start building up this base and moving bombers into here to threaten Sakhalin and Hokkaido. And this was going to act as a diversion for the Japanese in other places, since they were going strong down here in the Indian Ocean, right? They were very busy down here. They were heavily committed here. But in order to facilitate that, they had to strip things away from here. And I was looking at these bases here, and I could tell Lodrik was not developing them at all. He had nothing here. He did not spend any time in the Kuril Island chain at all. So it was my intent to invade these and just make the Japanese think twice about other stuff and maybe shift forces back here to defend Hokkaido, because Hokkaido's got some oil, right? It's got industry, and it's got a lot of resources. So there's a little bit of a breadbasket here. You have oil at Sakhalin and Toyohara. There's stuff here, okay? I wanted to invade that, and I was going to use Adak as a jumping off point to take a few of these islands here, establish those, and then just threaten the Japanese northern flank. To facilitate that, I had some stuff on the way. I had a couple battleships and some troop carriers coming in there, and I was going to start shifting more destroyers and support vessels up here. This operation was probably going to be supported or launched without aircraft carrier support, but by my summation, Lodrik didn't have enough operable bases and stuff here to defend it before I could get a foothold. So I was going to invade the Kuril Islands probably in the next 2 to 3 months at campaign time. So that was the first incoming operation. The second operation that I was planning was a relief of the South Pacific by the Hornet and the Hornet. Just the Hornet, because all I had available. But as you can see here, I crammed it with as many aircraft as I could. I got 3 fighter squadrons and 2 Dauntless squadrons aboard, and it was my intent to come here, refuel at Nikuhiva, come down to Rappa, grab these troops and supplies here, and all these ships that were stranded here at Rappa, and escort them into New Zealand, and then from there, grab all these troops that were stuck in New Zealand, right? These are troops that got stuck in New Zealand when Lodrik's carriers came down here and raided my convoy lanes. I was going to use the Hornet to provide cover. And then eventually pack all this stuff up and move it up to Noumea and initiate a counterattack in the Espiritu Santo, Fiji, New Hebrides. All that stuff was going to come out of Noumea. So the Hornet was on the way to just escort these task forces into here and then up into Noumea for offensive operations. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to do that. The next thing I had planned was to continue to build up Port Moresby, get more troops in there, get more heavy bombers in there. That's all I had available right now. And continue hammering Rabaul. It was clear to me that Lodrik's main base of operations, other than Truk, was Rabaul. Everything that he sent at me to take Luganville, Fiji, all these things came from Rabaul. So I wanted to start targeting that with heavy bomber missions. I just never really got the chance. I never got enough of them in play. It's only March, right? March 29th. I didn't get to do that. But because he let me have Port Moresby and because I sacrificed so much to keep it, remember all those ships that got sunk? I basically made Rabaul impenetrable and impossible for him to take back, right? I had fighters here, I had bombers here, I had more than enough infantry to repel any invasion that he could have attempted. So Port Moresby was my base to keep, and I was going to continue attacking Rabaul with it. Let's see, any other operations I had? Oh yeah, this one. This should actually go into mistake category, but I'll tell you what I was trying to do here. I have a lot of Australian troops in Burma right now and coming down the roads. my intent was to go on a minor offensive in Thailand here, and you could see the beginnings of it, but then you saw me reverse course and pull everything back because I thought he was coming into Mole Mine. He ended up not coming here, but it was a wake up call for me that I was maybe a little too overextended for March of 1942. But I was going to continue building up my force in Burma with American, Australian, British, Indian troops, and some Chinese troops too. And when I felt like the time was right and I could properly support it with aircraft, I was going to attempt a line drive towards Bangkok. I really wanted to knock Bangkok out of the war, or at least threaten it so that he had to push back from here. I needed another 2 months to do it because I was actually shipping more stuff out to India to facilitate this particular operation. But I definitely, since he gave me Burma, I don't, and you'll have to ask Lodrik why he actually never came for Burma. I don't really understand it. I don't see how you can win. If you're looking for an auto victory, you got to have Burma, you got to have China completely conquered, and then you basically need to take India or Australia. If you do those things, and you play smart and don't lose your carriers and don't get ridiculously overrun by the Japanese, you're gonna auto victory your opponent. But when he didn't take Burma, it basically secured my ability to defend China because we weren't having major supply constraints in China. And I figured, hey, since you're gonna give it to me, let's go on the offensive. If the troops aren't here, let's go after it. So I was trying to be offensive minded in Thailand. And while it does look like I was pulling back, it was only in response to the alleged invasion of Mole Mine, which never happened. So once I had realized that that wasn't going to happen, I probably would have started going after Udon Thani, Luang Prabang, all these other bases. Maybe even come in here to northern Vietnam and threaten the backdoor Hanoi and whatnot. But you know, Lodrik gave me that opportunity. I was going to take it. So that was kind of another big plan that I had. Of course, the invasion of Ceylon would have changed some things, but not all of it. So I think I've said enough here. I want to thank each and every one of you guys who've been supporting me since I started this campaign last year. Thank you for sticking with me. I'm sorry that it's ending this way. I didn't want it to end, but I also don't want to play somebody who doesn't want to be committed to this. So I hope you understand the reasons why I'm allowing Lodrik to walk away from this. I'm still calling it a win, but I only want to play someone who are at their best. Unfortunately, now I have no allied campaign because I thought this one was going to go on for a long time. So me and Helson elected to end that campaign because it just was just going too slow, and I wasn't really loving it. And honestly, I don't think he was either. So now I have no allied campaigns, but as I've already previously stated in other videos, I will be playing Japan next, and I'm currently in the process of setting up that campaign. I hope you guys will stick around for that. I'm not done with this game. I love this game. I love the community that we've built. I love my Discord. I enjoy interacting with you guys. I like live streaming. I haven't been doing it for a while, but I plan on getting back into it because now I only have one campaign to play, and I'm going to put all my energy into it. And don't forget, if you want to see high-level allied play on this channel, I am hosting Desert Wolves campaign, which is, first of all, being played by a fantastic, intelligent guy who's really good at this game, and it's months ahead. We're almost in 1943, and very few allied campaigns are on YouTube in 1943. So you can get your taste of the Allies' revenge by watching my videos of Desert Wolf taking on Weirway. And if you'd like to see me play Japan, we will be playing Helson. And I think it's going to be a great campaign. We're going to flip the tables and see how he does. So again, thank you for watching this campaign. I hope you enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I hope you did too. And I look forward to reading your comments. And stay tuned for more news on the Japan campaign, which it's going to be. I'm going to start making videos on my setup and my plans for that real soon. So this is Jochen Heiden signing off for the last time for the Lodrik versus Heiden campaign. I'll catch you guys on the next one.